Welcome everyone, I am Renfail, and today it is all about the ultimate minstrel guide for Lord of the Rings Online. It's been about a year and a half since we've done a guide for this class. I usually like to come in about every year, and we're a little past due for that, so we're coming in now in April of 2023 to do an updated version of the ultimate minstrel guide for Lord of the Rings Online for those of you who might never have played this class before. I love my little Hobbit minstrel. Oh, I love it. I love it. Look at that. It's so awesome. This is a really fun class to play. This is the very first class that I ever played in Lord of the Rings Online when the game launched all those years ago. I did a guidebook for killer guides way back in the day for the Minstrel, and then a follow-up guide for the Lore Master. Those are the first two I played. But the Minstrel has always held a special place in my heart because it is just a really fun class to play. And while back in the day it used to only be, relegated to healing, these days they can do a lot of different things. We're going to be talking about all of those things today, so strap in. Before we get any further though into the video, I have to do the prerequisite stuff, which says if you're new here, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon so you never miss an update, because I do a lot of guides for Lord of the Rings Online. We do Star Wars: The Republic, we do other MMORPGs, RPGs, and so on and so forth. Lots of games, tabletop games, books, TVs, shows, film reviews, all that other stuff. So follow along for all the things. Support if you can. Super chats on live streams and premieres, super thanks on uploads like this one, as well as any YouTube short you see, and of course memberships here on the channel. Those are great ways to support. We also have a Patreon page, which we'll talk more about at the end of the video, but in the meantime, let's get past the intro and actually dive into what is the Minstrel in Lord of the Rings Online. Alright, so what is the Minstrel? What kind of class is the Minstrel? Well, that's complicated. It used to be that this was the healer of the game. And you still have healing abilities, like Cord of Salvation, like I just did, or the Bolster Courage. Oh yeah, Raise the Spirit. Inspire Fellows. And of course, Fellowship's Heart. You still have all of the healing abilities that the game launched with back in the day, but these days the Minstrel is way more than just a healer. So there's several different things you need to pay attention to when you're starting to think about playing a Minstrel. Understanding that it can be a healer and still is probably in my mind the best healer in the game is important. You can be a primary healer, but you can also be a DPS class these days, or you can be a hybrid between the two. So first and foremost, before we even get into the trait specs, you have stances in the game. So the first stance is called the dissonance stance. It says here, your charismatic speech drives fear into the hearts of your enemies. You lose access to all fellowship heals, and all normal heals become self-only. Major ballads become offensive ballads, Coda of Vigor becomes a Coda of Fury, and you get a plus 15% cry and call damage and plus 25% ballad damage. Most important to this stance is to understand that all heals become self-only. So the dissonance stance is the DPS stance for the Minstrel. The next stance is the melody stance, which is a blend between a healing stance and the DPS stance. Called a neutral stance, melody is focused on neither healing nor harming, but offers the ability to do both in moderation. Pay attention, of course, only one stance can be active at a time. You get 12.5% ballad damage, plus 5% outgoing healing modifier, and a 15-second anthem duration bonus. The third stance is the resonance stance, which is known as the healing stance, wherein all of the Minstrel's restorative abilities are at their finest. This turns your major ballads into a healing ballad, Echoes of Battle becomes the melody of battle, the Coda of Melody becomes a Coda of Resonance, and you get a plus 10% bonus to all of your outgoing heals. Now what's very interesting is I want you to pay attention to the hotbar. This is very subtle, and you might not notice it unless it's being actively pointed out to you, but look at all of my icons down on my hotbars. And you'll notice that when I change a stance, some of those icons are going to change. So let's take a look here. If I go into healing stance, if I go into the resonance stance, what changes? So this one changed. The melody of battle changed over. It says this skill is only available in resonance. And now this ability inspires you or your target to better know the fluid nature of battle. Gives me a +3 parry chance. And reflects damage. So when I change it over, if I go back over to melody stance, you're going to see number 2 here on the hotbar is going to change over. Not just number 2, a lot of them change. Now it becomes Echoes of Battle, okay, which is a damage song. And then if I go into the dissonance stance, it changes again and becomes Timeless Echoes of Battle. So you'll notice that across the bottom, a lot of my, not all of them, but number 1 and number 2 change. And also my control minus and control equal, these two change. So not all of these change, but some of them do. Number 8 changes as well. Call to Fate becomes different things depending on what stance you're in. Becomes unavailable in certain stances. So understanding how the stances work is the first aspect of how you're going to play your minstrel, because this is different than the traits, and we're going to get into the traits here in a minute, because the traits are sort of the overall build for your character, but the stances are sort of how are you playing in any given moment. Now, if you're playing with a friend, which I often play this character with my brother, I'm traditionally almost always in the melody stance, and the reason I'm almost always in the melody stance is because Hero's Strike restores my morale and gives me a bonus to healing modifier, and then it turns this Coda of Melody into an AoE heal, which means as long as I'm constantly running up and being able to pop this off, I'm able to heal my group mates consistently, and so it's just a great way to keep me healed. And we also get a +10 run speed bonus with Call of the Second Age. So I pretty much always run in the melody stance when I'm playing with my brother, because it's the two of us. It keeps us topped off, and I'm able to do a little bit of DPS and a little bit of heals. Now, if we're going to go in and we're going to run an instance, a skirmish with a couple of his friends that play with us from time to time, I will traditionally move over to resonance stance and start doing heals. Now, when I'm soloing, I'm almost always using dissonance stance, because this is the pure DPS stance, which makes me able to just go out there and just wreck things and kill them very quickly. However, it's really simple to switch between the dissonance stance and the melody stance, so that if I start to feel like I'm getting overwhelmed or my heals are, I'm not getting enough heals going out, I can very quickly switch over to the melody stance, because one of the most important things is your first ability on the hotbar down here. Hero's Strike becomes a heal when you are in the melody stance, and it only has a 5-second cooldown. So every 5 seconds, I'm doing damage and getting a heal with a little bit of a heal bonus, which is great. And then I'm constantly running my ballads and getting my power-ups for Coda of Melody, which is an AoE, and then I can just mow things down. And we'll go get into some combat later on in the video so that I can show you guys what I'm talking about and how these things work in real time. But this is the essence of how you can switch between stances on the go, and this is the easiest and quickest way to understand that the Minstrel in Lord of the Rings Online is one of the most versatile classes, because you can really change things on the fly, and it really does change how your class plays, because you're literally changing your abilities based on the stance you're in. It's really unique and really cool. Alright, next up is the trait tree, and much like the other classes and class guides we've done in the game, you have a variety of ways you can spec your character based on the trait trees. However, unlike the other classes in the game, you only have 2 lines through which you can spec your character, which is the blue line or the red line. Now, there used to be a yellow line, but they got rid of it. I can't remember exactly when it was, but one of the updates within the last, I want to say it was like maybe 2022 at some point, they got rid of the yellow line and have moved most of these things over into passive abilities and buffs for your characters. So there are 2 different ways to think about how you can play your character. One is the Watcher of Resolve, which is the heal stance. It's the heal spec. So if you look down through here, these are the passive abilities you're going to get along the way. You'll be able to do Resonant Ballads, which gives you a +3 healing bonus. Snowball, which has healing effects stack. You get Bolster of Courage, also applies to your group. Triumphant Spirit instantly heals your fellowship. Call to Iorth, which causes your next heal to crit. The Rally ability, and of course Court of Legend, which is a 100% Court of Salvation healing. Really cool line for those of you who are all about keeping your group healed. However, I like the Warrior Scald. I like the red line. The red line is a damage line for the it's the DPS trait tree for the Minstrel. Now, the reason I like the red line is because I don't play my Minstrel in a group. My Minstrel is a solo Minstrel, or I'm playing this with my brother and a couple of friends. I'm typically not in a full group. I don't do fellowships very often. I don't do raids with this character. I am literally just here to do damage and be a badass when it comes to combat. So for me, I like the red line. What does that look like? Well, let's go over to my actual spec here. This is what I've got so far as I've run down through the red line. And on the left-hand side, we've unlocked some bonuses. So the Discordant Ballads, which gives me a +5% tactical damage buff. Chance to resist my cries is reduced by 10%. I get a minus. So this is a 10% haste on all of my attack speed, which is really nice. Additional haste on all cries and calls. We get the Freedom ability, which is the chance to trigger an ability that has a single healing skill from another stance. A +10 chance for War Speech, which is cool as well. Cry of the Valar, and we eventually will get our way down into Encore. And we've just got some really cool abilities as a result of this, like the Piercing Cry, Call to Fate, the Cry of the Wizards, and Cry of the I think it's Cry of the Valor. It might be this one, actually. Echoes, no. I know I got Cry of the Wizards. What's the other one? Fierce Cries? I swear there was another one I got. Anthem of War. I think that's what it was. So this is a great spec for DPS, the red line. I like it. Now, I could also do heals, but I'm not going to be as good of a healer as a blue line healer because I don't get all the bonuses. But I have healed for four people in fellowships before, and I've done just fine. I think that if I was doing full fellowships at endgame, I would prefer to be spec'd in the blue line if I was going to be healing for the group. But for the random skirmishes and missions and things that I'm going to be doing with my brother and friends, I've found that I could be running the red line and switch over to my resonant stance, and I'm able to heal just fine. So, hasn't been a problem to date. Booyah. Alright, anyway, that is the trait rundown. Of course, race traits, I am running Hobbit Stature, which gives me might. I'm running Stoop for a Stone, which really isn't worthwhile for anything, but it does have a little daze on it. Hobbit Stealth, which I never use. The Guile and Conviction bonus, which is kind of fun. And I have a return to Mickle Delving. There's other stuff which I haven't earned yet, so you can take a look at all those things. There's also Hobbit Silence, which you can you can lie down and cause things to ignore you. And then as far as my virtue traits are, I'm running Determination, Wisdom, Fidelity, Fortitude, and Charity, but you can run anything you want across the board. I traditionally like to go for anything that's going to give me more hit points because I'm a big believer in hit points equals better than anything out there at all, period. End of story. Anyway, that's the end of the trait trees, and we've got past the stances. Now we need to actually get into some gameplay for the Minstrel, so let's go find some trouble to get into. Alright, one of the first things I'm going to let you know about the Minstrel, which is very much like the Warden, is that they get really, really loud in combat. So a tip that I could give you as we get into actually doing some combat here is to drop the combat sound down. I would say put it down to like 25% or so. Here's why. So if you listen to the sound of my songs when I'm healing, this is what they sound like at full volume. That's just the sound of the heals, right? Now the sound of the instrument and so on and so forth. When I drop that down, you're going to notice that the sound of that gets much less. Okay? This is very helpful because he's going to start yelling a lot when we get into combat because the Minstrel relies on yells a lot. Trust me, you will save your ears a lot of trouble down the road. Just drop your combat sound volume down before you actually get into combat with the bard, with the minstrel, because they do a lot of yelling. So I've dropped us into a quick skirmish here so that we can just take a look at what this looks like doing a little bit of combat. So I'm running us in dissonance stance for the moment, but we will end up switching over to the melody stance at some point to see what that looks like. In the meantime, he'll do his little line of text before we get some mobs coming at us. We want to see what the combat looks like, so hurry up! Get through the text dialogue, Mr. Heathstraw. Prepare yourself, here they come. Alright, so they're coming from this direction. So we're currently running DPS stance, and stuff just melts. Now, granted, some of this is because we are also have... Look at that, I one-shotted that dude. I'm telling you, the DPS spec is just amazing. Let's go ahead and switch over to the melody stance, though. Let's see what this looks like. There's a lieutenant in here, so let's pull him down in here. Oh, he's not going to want to come, so let's take the fight over to him. We'll bring some mobs over. Go ahead and hit him with this, which is the AoE heal. And boom, we're done. They don't stand a chance. I love it. These are AoE abilities. Here's that self-heal that I was talking about. So boom, you just hit it. You do a little bit of self-heals. From the west, something from the west echoes across the courtyard. Hang on, I'm not seeing it. Now right now I'm running everything in that melody stance, but let's switch back over. Few moments to rest, it says. Here's an encounter over here. And we're just gonna melt this guy. I mean, it's just like the DPS stance is so powerful. It's so cool. And at no point have I really needed to worry about heals too much, but some of this is because I'm running with a companion, of course. But this is what it would be like if I was running with my brother. Now you notice that my companion actually has taken a little bit of damage. Now I can't heal him because I'm in the normal stance. So I would switch over to my resonance stance very quick, target my dude, give him a heal, switch back over into, say, dissonance stance, and I'm good to go. So like we're literally changing on the fly. Hitting him with an AoE. So you can see it's a very versatile class because you can switch the stances in the middle of your combat. And you notice that he's yelling. Lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of yelling. I'm telling you. The ballads could get out of hand. Get back into Melody stance for a minute. Do a bit of a group heal. Switch back over to our dissonance stance. Oh, gotta get the torch, dude. Oh, guess what we got here? Hello. Not a problem. So I'm just dropping AoEs constantly. Oh, come here, boys. This will be a good one. We literally just melt these guys down with AoEs. It's just not even a problem. Now, I'm starting to take a little bit of damage. Should I heal? Why not? Self-heal. I don't need to heal him. But if I did need to heal my friend, I'd be able to switch over to the Melody stance, pop an AoE heal, like so, inspire fellows, drop back into dissonance stance, and now we're back into doing DPS. Now, I didn't pay attention to the, I let one of the brigands get by and torch the barn, the prancing pony. It's all good. Prancing pony is taking a little bit of damage. Alright, Bree is safe. Quick and easy, everybody. That, in essence, is the Minstrel. A super versatile class. And in my mind, I'm going to be doing a best solo class later on for Lord of the Rings Online. And I'm going to let you guys in on a little secret here. Honestly, I think the best solo class of the game is the Minstrel. Now, I know some people might find that controversial, and that's not what this video is about, so you'll want to stay tuned for that other video because we're going to be talking about some of the classes that could fit into the best solo class of the game. But I think this one takes the cake because of the versatility of being able to easily go between a DPS stance, a blended stance, and a heal stance if you need to in the middle of combat scenarios like we just showed you, which makes it super, super versatile. So without further ado, we've come to the end of my Minstrel guide for Lord of the Rings Online. I think this is a super fun class to play. One of the things we haven't touched on, and you can look into this at your leisure. I don't necessarily have any on this character because I already know what I like, but one of the things to pay attention to is the sound your instruments make, and we'll go ahead and go back in here and turn this back up now that we're done with the combat scenario. The sound that your instruments make, or the sound that your songs make, I should say, when you play them, such as this. I have a drum equipped, so if we go into my actual equipment, I have an exquisite superior westernist drum called Drummy McDrumthump, which I created with my woodworker. You can have a wide variety of instruments with the minstrel. You can use a lute, you can use an oboe, you can use a flute, you can use a drum, you can use all types of different instruments. And those instruments impact the sound that your songs make when you play them. So in this case, I'm banging on a drum, like so. If I had a lute, I would be strumming a lute. If I had a flute, I would be playing a flute, so on and so forth. That is a flavor element which has nothing to do with the game itself. There are some stats associated with my instrument, but that's because it's a crafted instrument. So you could choose to have a crafter make instruments for you, and in this case, I get a plus 18% ballad and coda damage and a morale bonus, and it sets my echo of battle damage type to Western S. But it's the sound. That's the most important thing. Some people want to hear the flute, some people want to hear the lute, other people want to hear the oboe. I like the drum. For me, that's the one that resonates the most with me. But it's going to be different for everybody. Also, you're going to get a completely different animation. I kind of feel like I should have had this prepped before we did this part of the episode, but I didn't think about it until I got to the end as I was getting ready to do my outro. So that's something to think about, is that the types of instruments you play will impact the sound of your songs and the animation style of when you're performing, which is a lot of fun, and it's a nice little roleplay element to sort of add some extra flavor to the minstrel. So, without further ado, we have officially gotten to the end here. If you liked this video, like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon. Thanks so much for supporting those of you who do, and if you can, here's how to support. On an upload like this, you just do a super thanks. YouTube's got some pre-programmed amounts down below. You just click that donate button, and you can put in whatever you want according to there. They have 3 different tiers, but you can also put in whatever you want. $50, $2.50, 72 cents, whatever you can contribute. You can also do super thanks on any YouTube short of mine that you see on the channel. Super chats and stickers are for live streams and premieres, and there's also memberships here on the channel, 3 different tiers that you can dive into, starting at $3 a month. Beyond that, we have a Patreon page where my wife and my brother and I have our own point-and-click adventure game. If you like the old King's Quest, Quest for Glory games, we have a book series and a tabletop game. Plus, there's the Discord if you want to come join us playing Star Wars: The Republic, Lord of the Rings Online, and the other games that we play from time to time together. Until next time, everybody, stay safe, and hopefully we'll see you in the next Lord of the Rings Online guide or whatever other video that we're doing here on the channel. Until then, stay safe. See if I can get a wave here. All right, everybody. See you next time.